Let's
Yeah.
talk about the Lightning Network for a second, because
Hmm.
I'm not sure a lot of people really understand what Lightning is.
Hmm.
Explain how it rides on the Bitcoin or on the blockchain, how it can be utilized as a potential gateway for payment.
Yeah, sure. So the Lightning Network is a layer two scaling solution to the Bitcoin protocol. And to first understand why the Lightning Network exists, you kind of need to step back and look at some of the properties of the Bitcoin blockchain, or the base layer, as it's commonly referred to. The For Bitcoin to be, truly peer to peer and as secure as it is, there's a few trade offs that have to happen, and those trade offs generally are manifest themselves in the amount of transactions it can put, like, in a given time, like your transaction times and number of transactions per second, that kind of thing, and then also in the fees charged per transaction. And so during these really high transaction times where there's a lot of people trying to get transactions in, you could be waiting a long time for your transaction to be confirmed, and you could also be paying a large fee on the transaction. So sending something like $5 could get really cumbersome, where you might be paying $5
Right.
in fees for the $5 transaction. And so the
Mhm.
Lightning Network was created to sort of solve these issues. And what the Lightning Network is it's a network of nodes in a peer-to-peer network on top of Bitcoin that is connected by what's called payment channels. And these payment channels are created by sending one on-chain transaction, that base layer. But then once that one transaction is created to create this payment channel, you can do virtually infinite amount of transactions across that channel instantly
Mhm.
and for free or for very little fees. So what this creates is it's almost like a graph of nodes in this peer-to-peer network, where you can send through these payment channels and send to anyone on the network for very little money and instantly. And so it allows us to keep a lot of those same properties of Bitcoin, and it's strictly like peer-to-peer, all of its securities and scarcity, that it makes it so great. But it allows us to use it in much more of the maybe traditional ways that we think of, like a Visa or a Venmo or something, where we're sending it
Right.
instantly and we don't have to wait on confirmation times, things like that.
Yeah.
And so this has really allowed us to scale Bitcoin to what we expected to be in a global payment system, or even incorporating it into the internet that we use today. The podcasting thing is a great example of, if we didn't have the Lightning Network, this whole micropayments thing probably wouldn't exist. It doesn't really make sense to pay $5 for a 3-cent transaction to support a podcast. So this really
Exactly.
enables us to use Bitcoin in the internet as it exists today, and like in a more native way, in a more seamless way, while still maintaining a lot of those values that make Bitcoin what it is.
So okay, this kind of goes into a couple of things I want to dive into on the
Mhm.
payment, mechanism itself, both from, from a user standpoint, but also from a future standpoint, as we see cryptocurrency and blockchain technology being adopted, because it is ramping very quickly. I would say, when you look at the numbers and the trends, we're watching the leaps we've taken in the last just 18 months has been
Mhm.
astounding. Why do you think we haven't seen more companies really moving into the Lightning Network, which enables these fractional opportunities for payment at much lower rates, if any? It would seem like it would really kind of open up Bitcoin as a true transaction vehicle, as a payment device, which has been one of the knocks on Bitcoin for a long time. Most people, we've had Mike Saylor on this show, he's talked about this more as a stored value. A lot of people now are looking at ways to start accepting Bitcoin, but mostly for larger ticket items. I could see this
Mhm.
really get into like the restaurant space when you need to buy a cup of
Mhm.
coffee, those kind of things. The fractional type purchases, which really get dinged hard on these transaction fees. This could eliminate all of that. Why wouldn't all the merchant companies be jumping all over this?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple of different answers to that. One is, it's been a little bit difficult to get onto the network. There's like a set of technical requirements, which is
Right.
one of the things that we're trying to solve here, is to make it much easier, where it's kind of a couple clicks and you're on the network. So it's historically been a little bit difficult in terms of technical requirements, which is getting easier and easier, both through us and a lot of other companies in the space. So it's getting easier to do that. And then there's also, like you mentioned, like the store of value thing. Some people, think that, well, Bitcoin's like only a store of value. Why would I buy a cup of coffee with it? And
Right.
I'm of the opinion that it can kind of solve both of those use cases, right? It can still be
Mhm.
the store of value, but you can still, use it to transact in a very, a few cents or $5 cup of coffee thing. I don't think that one defeats the other. And
Mhm.
so I think that with that, and then when you think about Bitcoin and the Lightning Network, I think it's very comparable to the early days of the internet, where like maybe we're at broadband, like maybe even Netscape like arenas, and so
Yeah.
we're just like we're building the next internet, right? And so
Yeah.
it's just kind of the natural evolution of how this is going to be built out, and we're at that time where it's not like today where you can just get your email on your phone. We're not quite there yet, but we're building it up to that area. And so that's what voltage is trying to solve, is to make it easier, so a lot of these companies are starting to enable it into their apps and really bring Bitcoin into this next phase, which is using it in more of in an internet native way.
Yeah. Well, and I think, when you look at, because this is something that comes up on our show a lot with, whether you're in the HODL camp or you're in the camp of, let's trade. There are
Hmm.
some very interesting aspects to this, because if you look at Bitcoin, if you truly are in on cryptocurrency as the future of the monetary value system, then the likelihood is that it is going to be the vehicle for transacting at some point,
Hmm.
whether it's in the next 5 years or the next decade. The digital transaction is going to be a real thing. So
Hmm.
both from a legislative front, because of just the taxing positions that we're dealing with cryptocurrency, I think all of that's going to get solved, and eventually,
Hmm.
like what you said, we are in the very, very nascent stage of where all of this is going because of that, and because of the opportunity that sets in front of us right now.